We'll see if this works. I need more storage on my computer, so I'll try to save it to the cloud and see if I can retrieve it. So I want to share my screen just to make sure everybody knows about this. So do you all see the A&P course shell? Yes? Okay, so I'm clicking on content, and that's where everything is. Okay, so you definitely want to make sure you check on that. Here's, of course, those 2 Zoom recordings that I did the other day, and the course syllabus and all that good sort of stuff. And again, I talked about all of this on those recordings, but what I wanted to just, again, ask you to bring tomorrow in lab are a couple handouts. So if you go to the file about stuff to copy and bring to lab each week and click on that, and are you seeing that file now?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. These are the 4 specific handouts that I want you to bring with you tomorrow. Actually, maybe there's just 3. I guess there's just 3, not 4. Yeah. This scientific method and measurements, exercise 1, print that off, bring it with you. Instructions for writing the lab report, and exercise 2, body organization and terminology. Now you're looking at my course shell. You're not going to have this key visible on your course shell. I can free this up, and I will. But this is the answer key, obviously, to this handout. So I'll be providing that to you tomorrow, the hard copy, and then I'll free it up on Blackboard so you can look at it after tomorrow. So these are the 3. Again, please copy and bring with you tomorrow. Okay, great. The other thing that I was going to say, and let me see if I can go to student view. Okay, so here's what you guys are going to see. I can do that. Here's the file that we were just in a moment ago. And then there's those 3 exercises. You don't see the key, right? Because I hid it from you, but I can free that up. What I was going to just say is I will also be freeing up additional handouts that correspond to future labs. And so sometime today or tomorrow, I'll go in and I'll free all those up. And you might want to like print all that stuff off at one time. I know it's a lot of printing, but I would suggest printing it all off. You know, if you can find a 3-hole punch, we have some at school that you can use too. Then you can put it in like a small binder, and then just bring the binder with you every lab, and then you got everything you need. You know, as opposed to trying to remember, well, what do I need to bring this week? And you know, the printer's out of paper or what have you. There's always things that happen, right? So I'm going to try to give you all that in the next day or 2, and then you can print it off and bring it with you and have it, because I will not be providing you with handouts every week. It's going to be sort of on you to get those together and bring them with you, okay? All right, let me get out of this preview mode. And go back to content for just a second. Okay, so as you can see, there's quite a bit of stuff here, but I'll again give you that in just a couple days. Let me just kind of open the floor to see if you guys have any questions about that set of videos that I recorded that you watched that relate to the course, the mechanics of the course. You'll have to obviously unmute yourself if you want to talk. Any comments, questions, things that you've been wondering about since you watched those?
Can you do any printing at school?
Yes, we have a room right behind the lecture hall that has 2 PCs in it and a printer. And so certainly you can print from there. Also, in the computer center, in the tech building, there should be capabilities to print from there as well. Yeah. Yep. Good question. About other questions?
On the outline, it says there's a quiz on 12/11, which is a Friday, and then 12/16, which is a Wednesday. Is that right?
Oh, where was that again?
On the where it says the date of quiz given in lab, that outline.
Okay. That's the lecture schedule, tentative lecture schedule. And you're saying the 16th is a
So
Wednesday.
on week 16 and 17.
Okay, good eye, right. So let's see, quiz 11. Okay, 19th. So that quiz that is listed as 12/11 on week 16, that is going to have to be probably on the 3rd. No, the 3rd is the exam. So that's going to have to be on the I don't know. Let me look at that. I got to think about that, I guess. Not going to be an easy fix to tell you right off the bat, but thank you for catching that. I don't know how that happened. Other questions, things you saw that didn't make sense? Maybe this is a good time to kind of reiterate kind of how we're doing the quizzes and the exams. Is everybody aware of how we're doing that? Okay. We're giving all of the lecture quizzes and the exams, the lecture exams in lab, as opposed to doing it on Blackboard. So this is very different from what you might be used to. As a result of having to move those quizzes and exams from lecture into the lab time, I had to get a little more creative in how I organized the lab exercises. And so as you may have noted, there may be some labs where we have not only a lab quiz, but maybe even a lecture quiz on the same day, right? And my thinking is for those dates where we have both a lecture quiz scheduled and a lab quiz scheduled, I think what I'm going to do, and I'll talk about this tomorrow as well, is have us all do the lab quiz right at the beginning of lab, and then the lecture quiz you'll do just before you leave, okay? Toward the end of the lab. That's kind of my thinking at this point. Okay. So I will again review that with you guys tomorrow when we talk about lab stuff. But please do look over those videos and look at the syllabus, be familiar with the policies and all that good sort of stuff. All right. I also put on Blackboard, I recorded chapter 1, the material from chapter 1, because as you may have noted, we're scheduled to cover chapter 1 and 3 this week. You go to the tentative lecture schedule. And chapter 1, again, it's a very general short chapter. Because we're only meeting once a week, right, on Wednesdays, there's going to be some chapters that I'm going to have to record and lecture on and then post. And then you're going to have to, of course, look at that as you're reading the chapter or after you've had a chance to read, or maybe before you've read the chapter. However you want to do it, it's totally up to you. But we won't actually probably talk about it unless you have questions. And depending upon how these Wednesday meetings go, we might take time to do like a formal lecture, and I'll share a PowerPoint with you, and we'll do class as if you were sitting in class. And I'm perfectly fine with doing that. The other thought that I had, and you can tell me what you think, another option would be for me to record those lectures like I did for chapter 1 for like all the chapters, and then we use Wednesday as sort of an open forum to talk about that week's material. Now, we also have an optional review session, which some of you have signed up for. So it would be sort of like that if we adopted that particular, approach. So I'm not exactly sure how we should proceed. This is new to me too, and I want to make sure that we're using the best time most efficiently, but I want you guys to be learning the material, and I want to do the best job I can, for you for that. So, does anybody have any thoughts on that?
I'm personally fine. I don't know about everyone else. I'm fine with either of the options you just said, and the questions will come as we like progress through the course. So that's just me. So.
Thank you, Stephanie. I appreciate that. Anybody else have any thoughts?
I like the way that you did it this week, where you did like the video and we looked over it and then asked questions in class as well.
Mm-hmm. Okay, Caitlin, thanks.
Yeah, I agree with that. I think using Wednesday to like ask any questions that you don't understand or you want more clarification on would be I think that would be really good to do.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Victoria's shaking her head. Now, don't be afraid to say, hey, I'd rather have a formal lecture. Don't be afraid to give me your opinion either way. And again, I'm fine with doing that. In other words, recording the lectures, posting those. It would be on you, of course, to look at those outside of the regular Wednesday class meeting time, right? The other thing I would just kind of really reiterate about this whole course is that, we moved through quite a few chapters in the entire, 16, 15 weeks. It amounts to about a chapter a week, right? Or 2 chapters at most, a chapter and a half, I guess. So, we're moving through the material, and it's really super critical that you keep up. That's really an important thing. And I talked about that already, so I won't belabor that point. But I think what students end up finding is that if they don't do so hot on the quizzes and the exams, it often boils down to not putting enough time into the course. That really often is what I see. And that really depends on the person, right? I mean, some people might need to put many hours in per week, reviewing and reading and synthesizing and reviewing and asking questions and reading it again and again. This is like learning a new language. A&P is, as you'll learn in lab tomorrow, a lot of anatomical terminology, right? That the nursing program is going to be utilizing. And I think a lot of you guys are taking A&P because that's what you hope to do, right? Get into the nursing program. So, let me ask you that question. How many of you are planning to do nursing? You can raise your hand virtually or physically. Seeing lots of hands, and of course, oh, you guys are so tech literate there. Emma got her hand up. So, yeah. How about anybody out there that's taking A&P for any other reason? Like maybe you want to be a dental hygienist or respiratory therapist, or you want to do pre-med. Anybody taking A&P for any other reason besides nursing? No? All right, interesting.
I have one question. So I'm like finally kind of getting comfortable with navigating around Blackboard and all that. But what section should we have done like this week or read up to? Like chapter 3, you said?
Okay.
Because right now I've done a bunch of notes up to chapter 2, so I'm not sure how far like ahead or behind I am.
Yeah, I think you are. I think you're right on schedule, Stephanie.
Okay.
Yeah, I think certainly chapter 1 you should have looked at by now, that the recording I did, and starting to read the corresponding material from the chapter, right? You already did that.
I did that.
And what you're saying is you're already into the chemistry chapter as you prepare for that chemistry exam I talked about, right?
Yeah, I still have to read like the first chapter of that, but I'm up to like section 1.8, but pretty much up there.
Okay. Remember, I said in the recording that there are some sections of chapter 1 that you don't have to worry about, that we're going to be doing in lab.
All right.
Right? So, for example, section 1.8, anatomical terminology, we're doing that in lab tomorrow. So that's not something you need to worry about for the lecture quiz or lecture exam number 1.
Okay.
And the same applies for part of section 1.6, the body cavities and membranes. We're going to talk about that tomorrow in lab, and you don't have to worry about that for the lecture quiz or the lecture exam. That was talked about in the PowerPoint. Yeah. So in terms of kind of like where you should be as the week progresses, I think if you try to stick to that tentative lecture schedule, you should be in good shape. My goal will be to have all of chapter 3 lectures done by this time next week. So we can use next Wednesday, right, September 2nd, to talk about, well, anything really, but maybe mostly on chapter 3 stuff. Or maybe you have questions about chapter 2, the chemistry chapter. Now you'll notice that chapter 2 is not listed here on the tentative lecture schedule. That's not because you don't have to read it, because I've already told you, you have a 30-point chemistry quiz test coming up on the 10th of September in lab. But I am not planning to lecture on that chapter, okay? You won't see a Zoom lecture recording on chapter 2. I am perfectly happy to talk about it, don't get me wrong, but I'm going to have 3 done by this time next week. I've already done chapter 1. And so what I will, again, try to do is get those lectures for the corresponding chapters loaded on Blackboard so that you have access to them. And then we can use the Wednesday time, meeting time, to talk about any concerns, or if you want to review concepts, or we can go over any material you want. In fact, we could even use this time to talk about lab stuff too, for all I care. You know, this is a combined lecture lab course. This doesn't have to be strictly over lecture stuff. So by the end of this week, you should be getting into parts of chapter 3, Stephanie. That's what I would probably say. Not all of chapter 3, because we're not getting through all of chapter 3 until the end of, or the middle of next week. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Great.
So where should we read up to for chapter 3?
Well, I haven't posted anything on there today. I was kind of waiting to meet with you guys to see whether you wanted to use part of today's class to talk about chapter 3. If we don't do that today, then my intention will be to get the first third of it up on Blackboard, the lecture, probably by the end of Friday. I'm a little behind schedule because I wasn't sure how we were going to do this, but I'm getting the impression that you're okay with using the Wednesday Zoom to talk about the material as opposed to having me formally lecture on it. So to answer your question, I would try to get up through, I would say page 108 by the end of Friday. Let's say that. That's about a third of the way through the chapter. And then what I will probably do is spend part of the weekend lecturing on the middle third of chapter 3. And then early next week, by Tuesday, or maybe Monday we'll say, I'll get the rest of chapter 3 done. So you'll have a couple of days to look it over before we get together on Wednesday. So I'm going to try to stay a little bit ahead of the schedule. And I think, well, at least what I'm being told by our instructional experts here that use Zoom all the time is, and they tell me, don't do an hour and a half Zoom class. You'll lose the students. And I certainly get that. So what I'm probably going to do, like for chapter 3, is I'll do like maybe 3 segments. You know, maybe 20 minutes each or something like that. That's going to be easier for you to digest as opposed to if I give you a whole big, long, boring hour and a half lecture, right? Yeah. So I'll break it up into segments and I'll tell you like this is going to cover sections 3.1 to 3.4. So you're going to have an exact idea of what's being talked about. And the other thing I guess I could mention, and maybe I already did mention this, you can use the study outlines in Blackboard to help provide guidance for you as you proceed through the chapters. Now my PowerPoints really cover the material in a chronological kind of way. So I think as you start to look at the PowerPoints and start to look at the corresponding material in the chapter, they're going to dovetail almost perfectly. So it won't be like you're going to get lost in the chapter. You're going to know exactly what sections the PowerPoints talk about. And then you're going to want to go back, of course, and spend some time reading over the material that the textbook provides, because I can't put everything on every PowerPoint slide. That would be crazy to try to do. We'll talk about it certainly, but please don't get into the mindset of, oh, I'll just listen to the recordings, watch the PowerPoints that he's putting up, and I won't ever open my book. That's not what I'm saying. We all know that there are classes that you can take where, why did I buy the book? I didn't use it. Is that true? Maybe, yeah. That's just not right, I don't think. You shouldn't be requiring a book unless you're going to use it. So you've got to definitely use the textbook. It's going to be a super good reference for you once you get into the nursing program as well. So, you know, I would advise you to give thought to keeping your A&P book. I mean, it's nice to get rid of it and make a few bucks by selling it, but you might end up wanting it when you get into pathophysiology or whatever in nursing. Yeah, so it's a good textbook, good reference to have. So use it. You spent good money on it, right? The lecture and the lab book together, which some of you probably bought as a bundle, right? What did that cost you? Like $200+ bucks, probably.
$217.
Yeah.
270?
217.
217. Oh, that's not too bad. I try to keep costs as low as I can, which is why the lab book is a customized lab book. In other words, I chose specific exercises, and then they actually printed up exactly what I wanted. So why should I have you guys spend, you know, 120 bucks on a lab book with 35 exercises, of which you use, you know, 22? That's just stupid. So I'm really cognizant of the cost of textbooks. I really know that it's expensive. I had a couple kids who just recently got through college and grad school, so I get how expensive books are. So, you know, 130 bucks you said, or 115 or whatever, between 2 semesters, A&P1 and A&P2, that's not too bad.
Is this the book that we're supposed to bring to lab with us?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. That's the book.
I got it from my aunt.
Oh, you did? Did she have A&P?
Yeah, she got her RN, so she had all the books.
Oh, great. That's a good point that Kelly makes. Now, this is the book that we're using this semester, which is the 15th edition of Hole's Anatomy and Physiology. But if you can get your hands on a 14th edition or even a 13th, you could probably use that.
Like this one?
Right. Is that 13th?
14th.
14th. Yeah. Now, the only thing I would say is there may be some sections of the 14th edition that they have changed. It's not significant, but there's a couple different parts to each chapter. They're called From Science to Technology and Clinical Applications. So those may have been altered just a little bit, but you're welcome to borrow my book and compare it with yours and see if there's any significant difference. I don't think there's going to be a big issue with you using a
Well, I also bought like that one on my iPad. So when I had like a digital version of the 15th.
Yeah.
So I have both of them.
Great. Great. What did the digital version cost, Kelly? Do you know?
$17.
Really? That's not bad.
And all of my math books and everything, I think total I only spent $100 on all of my books for college.
Wow. You think it would be hard to use the digital version though if you didn't have the hard copy?
It's not that bad. It's just a lot of scrolling, and it's kind of easy to find pages because then you're not flipping through them. The only thing is it's not like paper right in front of you. But
yeah, I find myself, liking the hard copy newspaper or magazine. I mean, I obviously do read online stuff, and maybe it's you guys are just more comfortable with the digital format because you grew up with it. But there's something about having it in your hands that I like to have. I don't know. I would have a difficult time having just a digital version of the book, personally.
yeah, it's not that bad. It's pretty easy to find on the tablet.
Yeah.
Because I can just pull it up, and it's right here, and I just can scroll through.
Yeah.
And find everything.
Great.
Yeah.
Okay. How about other questions about, the course, the lab?
When is the review again? I believe I got an email. I'd have to go back and look. But when is that?
The review is Tuesdays from 10 to 10:50.
On Zoom or is it in campus?
On Zoom.
Okay.
In Zoom. And I had sent an email out basically saying I don't see a point in meeting this coming Tuesday, which of course was yesterday, because we haven't met, we haven't done anything yet. So you didn't miss anything. I mean, I guess we could have met at least, hooked up through Zoom and at least made sure the system worked. But I decided maybe we should just kind of not worry about the first review.
What time does that?
The review goes from 10 to 10:50 on Tuesdays.
Now, if you aren't signed up for the review, can you still attend the review?
Well, technically, you should register for it if you're going to come to it. And there is, I think, like a $30 fee for the review. So I guess to be moral and ethical about it, you should register for it if you want to come. But that doesn't mean, of course, that we can't use Wednesdays, as we've discussed, to go over questions and problems, or talk one-on-one, even on Thursdays, if you have questions about anything as well. So I'm not trying to poo-poo the review session or say, don't sign up for it. They can be helpful for students. We can spend more time going over whatever it is. But you probably should register for it if you want to come to it. That's the official policy. It would be sort of unfair if you paid for it and then somebody didn't and was asking questions and all that. You know what I'm saying? It's sort of a ethical thing, I guess.
So is it just $30? Like, how many review sessions are there? Like, will it be from here on out?
Yeah, it meets every Tuesday
Okay.
for the whole duration of the semester from 10 to 10:50. Yep.
So it'd be worth
And
it.
how do you register for it?
I'll simply say it can be worth it. It's like anything. You get out what you put into it, right? So for the reviews, what I ask students to do is to come with questions. I mean, I don't want to spend the 50 minutes lecturing because I have spent the last day doing that. Now, don't get me wrong. I'm certainly willing to go over stuff and talk about stuff, but I would much rather have you come with a couple of questions you've written down from having looked in chapter 5, let's say on Monday or Sunday, and it's confusing to you. Let's talk about that and bring them up. Let's go over that. So I really want people to come willing to participate in that review. I'm not going to have a formal agenda or anything at those reviews. I open it up for review. That's what it is, review. So you have to come to me with questions or say, hey, could we review this topic or what have you?
Are the reviews recorded and posted?
I would like to be able to do that, absolutely. Just before we started class today, I tried to record just like a minute's worth of video, because when I typically record the Zooms, I do that at home. And I have plenty of storage in my computer at home, and so I know that it's going to record fine, and I can upload it to YouTube and then put a link in Blackboard to the YouTube channel, right? That's what I do. When I started to do that about a half hour before class started today, it said, you have less than 1 gigabyte of memory. And I don't know how much these recordings suck up in terms of memory, but it's probably more than a gigabyte. So I'm like freaking out. I called our tech folks and I said, hey, I got this pop-up warning. So long story short, I need to investigate how to delete some stuff that I've got here to make room for recordings. I want to be able to record these review sessions and of course record the Wednesday meetings we have, so that if you want to go back and look at them, or if you miss a class or you miss a review, you can just look at the recordings. But I have a little homework to do to figure out how to free up enough storage between now and next Wednesday. And I'll do that. At home, not a problem, but it's a different story here because I've got so much on my computer. But that's the goal, to have everything recording. And if, by the way, I forget, don't be afraid to say, hey, don't forget to record this. I sometimes forget. And we're trying to record this to the cloud. I'm going to see how this works. I hope that it's something I can retrieve and put on Blackboard. How about other questions, comments?
How do we register for the reviews?
I would suggest contacting your advisor, and they should be able to register you. The other thing we could try is when we get together tomorrow in lab, I could try to do that. Sometimes once we start classes, I can't go in and add people to courses that have already started. So I can't promise you that I'll be able to do it, but we can definitely get it done. It's not a function of if, but how. Yeah. But if you're nursing, you see your nursing advisor is Jen Vispisky, you know, you guys are pre-nursing, so you know a lot of the folks downstairs. You could just, you know, email one of those guys and they should be able to put you into the review. And if not, I'll try to help you out tomorrow. How about other comments, questions? No questions?
I personally don't have any questions until like we've like moved further on.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
I don't really have anything yet.
So we don't
No.
have anything due this week or next week in regular class so far?
So in terms of lecture and kind of when things are due, I don't have formal assignments that I give you to do for lecture. Your assignment is to keep up with the readings, ask questions, prepare for the lecture quizzes and the lecture exams. I'm not asking you to turn stuff in. I'm not going to record or correct anything other than your quizzes and your exam. So that's your homework, is to keep up with the chapters, look at those Zoom recordings, and if something's not making sense, write it down and ask about it. As we'll talk about in lab, there are different diagrams that we'll be labeling, and in the back of the lab exercises, there are lab reports for each exercise that have a series of questions that I'm going to suggest you do, and we'll talk all about lab stuff tomorrow. So I'm going to, I think, hold off on that until we get together one-on-one, and we'll talk specifically about the lab stuff. In fact, if you've looked over the syllabus, you're familiar with what I'm kind of getting at, because there is a little blurb about that, I think. We will be doing a lab experiment in tomorrow that will result in you typing up a lab report for me that will be due next Thursday, September 3rd. And we're going to talk about the format of that lab report. We're going to talk about the experiment we're going to all do together tomorrow. But I would ask you, as I did earlier today, to make sure you bring those 3 handouts and read over that exercise 1, predicting height from long bone length. Please look that over before you come into lab. It's like a 2-page, 1-sheet handout. Look that over. And then bring those other 2 handouts with you. So back to your original question, no real assignments for lecture. For lab, same idea. There are some questions that we'll talk about you having to answer. You don't turn those in for a grade. I grade you based on the lab quizzes. And then there are 3 lab exams called lab practicals that I'll talk to you about a little more tomorrow. There is 1 lab report that you're going to formally type up and hand in to me. That's what we're doing tomorrow. You're handing it in a week from tomorrow. But there's only 1 formal lab write-up that you've got to do this semester. We're getting it out of the way right away, I guess. That's the way to think of it, right? There's extra credit for the course, right? You should be familiar with that. Look over the syllabus, has it all in there. How about other questions? Don't be afraid to ask.
Is there any specific things you want us to bring to lab besides those papers and that book?
Not really, Kelly. I'd say bring your lab book, bring the 3 handouts. That's all you really need. I'm going to be providing you with all of the materials for the labs. Yeah, so there's nothing really to bring with you. I think I may have mentioned that make sure you come a few minutes early, because there may be a check-in that you're going to have to do. Now, yesterday when I came, there was a person at a table outside of the Allied Health and Science Center that gave you a colored wristband to wear. What they're doing is you guys are familiar with the app that you're supposed to fill out? Yeah, Okay, so that's what I do too. So there's the app you're supposed to fill out an hour before coming. If you forget that, then there's like a hard copy sheet you have to answer your, do I have any fever, symptoms, all that stuff. So that all takes a little bit of time. So just come a few minutes early so that if you have to go over to another building to sign in, you can do that. When I came in today, there was a sign that says, go to the college center to get your bracelet. And that's a kind of a pain in the butt to have to do, but if you came at 5 to 10 and you had 10 o'clock lab, you're going to be late. So just come 15 minutes early, at least for the first lab or two, so you're aware of some of these things that we need to do. So the idea is that students are given a colored bracelet, basically. It's a paper thing you can rip off at the end of the day. And each day has a color, and so it's just to ensure that you've completed the app or whatever. The college is being really, really careful about this whole COVID thing. They're requiring everybody to wear masks, right, all the time. I was kind of worried about how I was going to do with my glasses fogging up. And it's hard to talk for an hour and 15 minutes with a face mask on. And it gets hot, but it wasn't horrible. But if you don't have a face mask, I think they'll provide you with one. But you've got to wear face masks the entire time you're in the building. So yeah, they're really trying to minimize the chance of transmission. You've all heard recently that Fredonia had a case. A lot of colleges and universities have had to close, right, because of all the parties. And I went to school at Iowa State, and I see Iowa State made the news the other day. They had a couple big parties outside the university, and like 150 students were found to have COVID, and Harvard had to close down for 2 weeks, or is it Notre Dame? Maybe it was Notre Dame. Anyway, it's just unfortunate when I watch the news and I see students say, well, I think COVID's it's all fake. It's fake news. And I'm not trying to get political here, but you can tell 178,000 people who are now dead that it was fake news, right? It is not fake news. It's the reality. Now, you have a lesser chance of dying from it if you're 21, but do you really want to take the chance of getting it from somebody and then going home that weekend and giving it to your grandfather or your aunt? I mean, this is just simple logic in my mind, but there are lots of people who just aren't really thinking about this very carefully, I think. Anyway, we're trying our best to stay open, right? Because if we have significant transmission at JCC, they'll close us down like they did in March. I'm sure they will. And then we're going to have to go remote. And that's not something that's going to be fun to do for lab, especially because it's harder to learn the material, I think. So we're going to do our best to be safe. And we'll see where it goes.
I have one question, kind of not associating with the class. I have a math class tomorrow morning, 9:30 to 9:45. I guess the library isn't open till 9. Do you know?
So, Stephanie, your class starts when?
It starts at 8:30 to 9:45. I'm not sure if I said that. I might have said a different time. But till 9:45. And I know our class, or the lab, starts at 10. I guess the library doesn't open till 9. So, is there somewhere I can go, at least? Because I live like 20 minutes away from the school, and there's no way I'm going to make it from my math class that gets done at 9:45 to...
Okay, so your class goes until 9:45 in the library building, and you have lab at 10.
Uh-huh.
So you have 15 minutes to
Yeah. I guess the library for you. Is there at least, because I live like 20 make it from my math class. I'm at home.
Okay.
So I'm going to have to find somewhere in the school to like just, I'm not going to rush from, I don't know. I don't think the library is open till 9 and my math class starts at 8:30. So I'm going to have to find somewhere in the school probably.
Okay.
Do you have any recommendation?
I'm hearing about every other word. You're kind of breaking up. So I think what you're asking are maybe two questions.
I'll type it.
I think what she's trying to say is she has her math class on Zoom until 9:45, and she lives about 20 minutes away from the campus.
Oh.
And she's not going to have any internet access to be able to do that.
In the
since
school,
library
probably.
won't be open.
Oh, I thought you had face-to-face at 8:30 to 9:45.
No. Yeah, I talked to my math teacher and she contacted the library if they had any other places I could go because the library isn't open till 9. My class starts at 8:30, but I want to make sure I get to your class on time as well. It's kind of a right.
Okay. Yeah, that's a great question.
I mean, she said I could come to her office.
There's a small cubby hole in the LLAC where you can reach Wi-Fi. It's on the second floor. You can go up there and sit. That's where I used to do my studying.
But
maybe that.
That's a good point Rayona brings up.
Where at? I'm not familiar.
Okay.
I'll write it down.
Building.
The library is in the LLAC building. So if you're if you're unfamiliar with the campus here in Olean, you can get a map, go to the college website and see where the buildings are relative to one another. So if you're totally unfamiliar with the campus, go and get the map and see what's going on.
I'll write it down.
Yeah, and Rayona brings up a good point, and that is if you go to the second floor, or even the first floor probably, I mean, there should be Wi-Fi access in almost all of the buildings. And you could possibly just find, Rayona, there's probably like tables and chairs, right? It's kind of like a lounge area.
On the second floor, when you walk up there, as you come off of the elevator, you look right to your right, and there's a little cubby hole with 2 chairs and a desk, and you can sit right there with Wi-Fi access and do your work.
Okay, what building is that again? I'm not.
LLAC.
Okay.
All
right.
We call
second floor, you said? Second floor?
Yeah.
Okay, I'll look for it, I'm sure. I'll leave a little earlier so I can find it.
Mm-hmm. I will ask around or investigate that question because I'm sure you're not maybe the only one, you know, who's impacted by that.
So our lab is at 10 tomorrow?
Yes, there's the morning lab is 10 to 12:45 and the afternoon lab is 2:40 to 5:25.
Okay, thank you.
Mm-hmm.
I just have a quick question. Yesterday in micro lab, I couldn't wear my glasses because they kept fogging up. Do you have like a mask recommendation that works best with glasses? Because I can't. Every time I do it, they fog.
Yeah. So actually, what I did, because I was worried about that, is I bought this stuff. It's called Fog Stopper.
Okay.
Now I picked this up from Spectrum Eye Care in Jamestown. And I used it yesterday, and it comes in a small, it's a 10 milliliter bottle. It's not much, but all you need is a little drop on each lens, and you basically just kind of smear that on the inside of your lens, let it dry for 20 seconds, and then I just take a chem wipe or some sort of like a lens paper. You could use a soft cloth, I guess. And then you wipe that off, and it actually, I was surprised that it did a good a job as it did. I mean, I get a little bit of fogging, but it's not nearly as bad as when I don't use this. And tell you what, you're welcome to try this when you come tomorrow. I'll give you some and you can just try it. Maybe you can get this on Amazon. I spent $20 for this dumb little thing last week. Like for 10 milliliters, you know, that's a lot of money, but this should last me forever, I hope.
Shaving cream does the same thing. I wear a mask every day at work, and shaving cream does the same thing.
Oh, good.
I was told if you have one of those medical masks, the blue ones, if you flip it upside down, so then like the scrunchy part is on your chin instead of on the top, like the part that pushes down, it doesn't fog as much. I don't know. That's just what people at the nursing home told me has helped. Maybe it does, maybe it doesn't, but that'll make it help.
And if you twist your ears.
Say that again?
If you twist your ears, so like the piece that goes around your ear, if you twist them.
Oh, so it's tighter.
So it's tighter against your face, so your breath isn't going up. I work at the same nursing home Kelly's talking about.
Great.
And some people use alcohol wipes too.
Okay. We have those in the lab. Everybody will have their own seat. We're going to be maintaining the 6-foot social distance. And so we're having the lab actually in the lecture room. I think I told you this again, so you should be aware of that. And so we've redone the lecture room in such a way that we can get only about 20 people in there. And every little station will have its own microscope and all sorts of stuff. And I think our lab tech, Deb, has also given everybody some alcohol wipes. So they'll be there for you if you want to try those.
So if it only fits 20 and there's 25 of us in the class, how's that going to work?
There's 2 labs.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. In the biology lab, I can only fit a maximum of 12 people. So we couldn't really do the biolab with A&P, we'd be one over. I'm doing micro in there, but we only have 23 students. So I have 2 sections of lab, one with 12 and one with 11. So the biolab is being used, but you guys won't use it. It's for microbiology. So the biolab is on the 2nd floor of the Allied Health and Science Center. Easy to find. So we've got like 24 people here. So you guys all found the room, which was great. We've got a few more minutes left. Any last comments you want to make?
If my lab book is still being shipped to me, am I going to be behind on anything tomorrow?
No, I'll be happy to provide you with handouts for, let's see, for those exercises, okay? You should still bring the 3 that we talked about, right? You can print those off from Blackboard. But the actual exercises that come from the lab book, I will provide that for you, okay? And I think I sent an email out asking you, how many of you will not have your lab book by tomorrow? So don't worry about anything from the lab book. I'll give you that stuff. But bring those 3 handouts from Blackboard. Because I know some of you have ordered your books and they may not have come in yet. And that's not uncommon. I have no problem giving you material until you get your lab book, but it shouldn't take like 10 weeks to get your lab book in. Right?
Sir, this is Ryan. Could I just clarify the lab location is what, 205 in the Allied Health and Science Center tomorrow?
204.
204. Okay, thank you very much.
Sure. If you don't have your textbook yet, Ordinarily, the library will have a copy, as would the Learning Center. So you could actually go over to either of those places and have access to the textbook. When I say textbook, I'm talking about the lecture text. There might even be a lab book over there as well. But as I said, I'll give you those exercises in lab. So I would suggest, if you don't have your textbook yet, that maybe you stop by the library and ask, and I'll make a note to myself too to double check on that, to borrow the textbook. You won't be able to take it home, I don't think. I think you'll have to use it there. But they will have a copy or two. If they don't, I'll make sure that they have it. But I'm almost positive they do. The Learning Center, I believe, is now being housed in the library building. It used to be in what was referred to as the Tech Building. And I don't know how many of you are familiar with the campus, but the Tech Building is separate from the library, or LLAC building. So I used to always put copies of stuff, you know, books and such, in both of those places, so students could get to them if they needed to. Okay, then I'm going to propose we end our meeting. I have lab at 2:40. It says this is recording. I'll see if I can post this to Blackboard. If I can find out where in the cloud it's being housed. I will look into the question regarding Wi-Fi and where you might be able to come on campus to access that. But hopefully, Stephanie, you can you know, go to the second floor of LLAC. But as I say, all of the buildings on campus should have Wi-Fi capability.
I'm sure I'll find a place.
Yeah. It's
The one
kind
that
of,
she was talking about.
I think it's kind of ridiculous to say I'm going to sit in my car and have class. That's just, I think that's dumb. I mean, I get the fact that you have access, but how can you like study in your car? No, I guess you could, but I'd rather have a desk for you to sit at, you know?
That was my plan for tomorrow.
Sit in your car?
Yeah, because I have psych right after lab.
I'm sure I'll.
Well, you know what? Let me look into finding some desks where students can go to before or after classes. Right, I'll look into that for you, and I'll have an answer for you in lab tomorrow. How's that?
Sir, this is Ryan again. In addition to that, the public library in Olean, I believe, also has Wi-Fi, so that's another option. You're right down the road from the library, so that might be another idea too.
That's a great suggestion, Ryan. I'm not sure what the public library hours are, but you could call and ask. Yep, absolutely. That's a great idea. You got definitely some tables and chairs there you can use. I'm assuming, of course, you're going to have to bring headsets with you or earbuds, right? You know, that just goes without saying. They're cheap. You probably have some. Okay, well, we'll see you guys tomorrow, either at 10 o'clock or 2:40. And come with questions. If we didn't get into it today, be happy to talk to you more tomorrow. Thank you for showing up. I look forward to meeting you face to face and starting our journey through A&P 1. Okay, see you tomorrow.
Thank you.
You bet.